Welcome to the Near Memo, a weekly conversation about search, social, and commerce. What happened, why it matters, and the implications for local.
So Mike, your topic today is about the distinction between the reliance on ratings and reviews and the actual reading of reviews that we've observed in user behavior and that you've anecdotally seen in other contexts. So what's the story there?
Well, the bigger story is that Near Media is now doing consumer behavior research for large multi-location chains or multi-location operations, whether they're
entities of some sort.
And in the first one, we noticed this behavior, but didn't, in one of our research projects, we noticed behavior, but didn't track it. And another research project, we decided to track it. And inevitably, 60 to 70% of the consumers note how important reviews are to them in making a decision. This is unprompted, given the tasks we give them. And they make decisions. They choose providers or lawyers or doctors, whatever, based on their inclination to appreciate reviews and ratings. So there's that, which is 60 to 70% of users express this need and want to see reviews and ratings. But what we also see, and was sort of interesting to me, even in high consideration categories or things that I would think of as critically important to a human being, not very many people. What's that?
They're
YMYL.
definitely YMYL, your money, your life categories. Yes,
correct. People don't only slightly more than about 25% or so, or a third of the people who actually look at reviews and ratings, only a third of them actually read the reviews. And I just find that fascinating. Obviously, there's the implications. This is something are severalfold. One is I think at the highest level for the FTC, they in their rules and guidelines allow incentives as long as the incentives are clearly stated in the text of the review. So
for example, write a review and be entered to win something in a sweepstakes.
Exactly. So those types of incentives are totally legal if it is clear in the review that this is what goes on. Well, if people don't read the reviews, what difference does it make if it bumped the volume of reviews up, and I think probably the positive star rating of the reviews were bumped up as a result, then people are just reading the ratings. I think that it speaks to why the FTC should just ban incentives altogether, both in the guidelines and in the rules. From a practical point of view from the business point of view, it means it doesn't really matter if you get a review or if you just get a rating, or it really means that volume is more important. High quality volume is more important than the content of the reviews. Now, we do know that reviews are used by Google to, understand the business and understand the entities. So there is value in getting the content, but people don't read it. So, from a strictly interactive point of view, it seems, secondary to most consumers. And I was just sort of, a big believer in reviews. Obviously spent a lot of my life looking at reviews. I was just sort of shocked by the sort of, reviews are really important to me. And then they would go and click on somebody and never read them. So it just was interesting behavior to observe. And
you said 60% of people are explicitly mentioning reviews, but I think the influence of reviews is much more significant. It's much higher than that. If you have to isolate putting aside rankings themselves, if you have to isolate a single variable that influences decision making, it's got to be reviews.
Even if not stated, I agree. I think that reviews, ratings, and quantity reviews influence people. So these are people who explicitly mentioned it, which like you said, is probably much lower than the actual number.
Yeah, and I see it largely similarly, but maybe not quite as strongly as you. There is the possibility that the methodology is prompting a speedier path of a search journey than might be true in real life. I don't think that explains 100% of this finding, but it could explain some of it. The other piece is I actually see the value of reviews. For instance, we found that in our recent study, only 9% of clicks went to naked GBP listings without reviews or ratings. So in some sense, reviews are almost more of a disqualifier if you don't have them. You're not in the consideration set if you don't have any reviews or ratings, but that once you do have them, that they're pretty influential in terms of obviously as you said, the volume of reviews and the quality of your rating, but even the text of the reviews is going to help you rank better. There is a significant percentage of people, we're not saying nobody reads reviews. There is a significant percentage of people that is going into, deeper down the listing or deeper on a directory website to understand what people are saying. In particular, we see a lot of people actually filtering by show me the worst reviews to see what is bad about an experience, even if it's rated 4.7 stars or something like that. So,
and I did see some searchers also qualifying best practitioner in this area, looking for a higher star. And that's the other thing, is that it struck me that the ratings were more significant than the quantity of reviews. That they wanted very high star ratings, and it didn't matter if it was 5 or 50 to a number of people. Some people looked at volume, but not as many. So it's behavior that I think is interesting and that isn't considered by our government in writing their regulations. So
I think if there's no review text, though, if there were only stars and no review text, it would be less convincing, less compelling to people. I mean, that's just my kind of speculative
there's
instinct.
Probably an inherent expectation that there's something behind these ratings, even if people aren't taking the time to
people want to see some text. They want to see that these are the text lends authenticity and credibility to the star rating, right? These are real people who have written these reviews. Okay, I can see that, and I'm going to look at the aggregate rating, and I'm going to do some spot checking at the worst review, the most recent review, maybe some of that kind of behavior. But I don't have time, certainly, to go through all these reviews. I mean, I think that's a serious challenge to people, is that there's just too much in many cases for them to try and wade through.
True, but rating has become a proxy for quality in so many ways. And that, just a mnemonic, it's like a quick way to move on and make some other decision. It'll be interesting to me to see if Apple's tactic of no text, but different areas of the business being rated.
Yeah, thumbs up, thumbs down.
Thumbs up, thumbs down.
Well, and they were going to use location awareness, your presence at that location historically. You visited there, and they could confirm that as a way to filter out fraud or, illegitimate reviews.
Interestingly, Google, because they have so little access to iPhone data, filters iPhone reviews, even fake ones, less than they filter Android reviews. So simply, which I find
good tactic for all of our Black Hat listeners.
All the Black Hat listeners, set up a big network of iPhones and hide the address and use a VPN and have at it.
Here's the URL where you can buy a bunch of fake iPhone reviews for Google. Well, I
do have that URL. If you're interested, you can email.
Yeah, sure. I was just in Las Vegas.
That is a comment made by Mike Blumenthal personally and does not reflect.
Yeah, not reflect any.
It doesn't reflect mine either, but I do happen to have the URL. Just saying, it's like, hey,
well, you can just do a freaking search on Google and get URLs and the top 5 results. Buy 5-star reviews on Google. I was
5-star reviews on Google created on iPhone so they don't get filtered. That's
a long tail search. I was just in Las Vegas for a conference, first one I've been to in a long time. I was
lucky fellow.
No, it was 110 degrees. I wasn't so lucky, but I was presenting there. It was the Milestone Engage conference, and I presented on SGE and the sort of state of search and so on and so forth in the hospitality and the banking industry. Anyway, a couple of friends came in for one night to hang out, and we were trying to find restaurants. And you'd think, that should be really straightforward and easy, but it was very difficult because without going into too much detail, one of the problems was the sort of uniformly high reviews on a lot of restaurants. It was just visually on a mobile phone hard to penetrate this kind of list of positive reviews where everything sort of looked the same, and there were pictures, but it was hard to make a decision. And that sort of prompted a conversation, which is sort of off topic a little bit, about the burden now of making decisions, even for simple things like restaurants, because there's just too much information available.
So I have one question about this. Were you happy with dinner at the end of the night?
Well, so in fact, we abandoned Google. We totally abandoned Google and just kind of went down. We were in Caesar's Palace where the conference was taking place, and we just went through the mall there, the Forum shops, and looked at menus and found a place that looked pretty good, and the meal was in fact good. Old school.
That is that is a high stakes bet you placed, Greg.
But it worked.
Well,
it worked.
And better than walking outside and doing that test.
No,
right?
no, not in
110
110 degrees. But it was just illustrative of something to me that, like, there's all this information online. It should be relatively simple to access and use it to make decisions. And yet it was a source of frustration, and I had to revert to this very, traditional pre-internet method, and it was fine. But anyway, okay. Anything else to add before we sign off for the week?
No.
Okay.
Sorry that you had to be in Vegas for as long as you did.
I'll tell you, it was a really interesting experience, and it really convinced me that I don't need to go to Las Vegas again. But we'll see what happens.
I decided that about 25 years ago. It's the pimple on the ass of capitalism. It is like
every time I go.
Again,
well, it's
Mike Blumenthal's views, not Near Memo.
I think whatever you want to say about Las Vegas, it's an interesting place. Just interesting
Totally
to observe. Interesting to observe the behavior that goes on there. That's right. Okay. Thanks for listening. Tell your friends. We will be back next week with more exciting adventures of the Near Memo, and have a good weekend, week, whenever you're listening.
Thanks for joining David, Mike, and Greg. To stay on top of the latest developments in local, subscribe to our newsletter at nearmedia.co. We'll see you next week.